Hello, so this is a video to help you out when you're writing your 20-mark geography essays, and this is one from the global governance topic. And here's the question. So globalization has created more cost than benefits. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So we're going to look through an answer, show you how the examiner would mark it, and think about the structure we need to be using in geography as well. So let's analyse this question to start with. So it's has it created more cost than benefits? To what extent do you agree? So clearly it's like a for and against argument, and I'd really encourage you to write a plan. Okay, it doesn't need to be a detailed plan. We could just have costs and benefits. Let's write down some we can think about that we're going to then write about. So obviously benefits, perhaps like NEE countries have developed more. Perhaps TNCs, I know I've done Coca-Cola, and all the positives to do with them, jobs, investment, that kind of thing. Perhaps I could talk about trade blocks as well. So it's been free trade, good for consumers because there's more competition, stuff like that. So I'm going to write about those things on my positive side. Let's think about negatives. We could do things like financial shocks. We could obviously do the TNCs, but bad working conditions. We've done invasive species as well. So remember Australia and the cane toad, so I'll try and write about that. Anything else? Oh yeah, okay, so we could do climate change with more transport around the world. Perhaps you could argue that's increased climate change and therefore that's going to have a negative impact. So we've got our arguments, and if you're feeling really confident, you can even think about your conclusion. I think I'll probably go overall positive on this one, but obviously there are some significant negatives, so it's probably not to full extent when I come to my conclusion, but I think to at least some extent it's going to be positive outweighing negative. So I'm going to use that word, extent, in my conclusion to be really, really clear. Okay, let's think about the mark scheme. So these are the codes we're using, we're going to use to mark it. So remember, in geography you always need a detailed conclusion. So that's going to be CO. We need to evaluate throughout. So weighing up that question as we go through. CP means concepts and processes. So what's the concept in this question? Globalization. Do they understand globalization, basically? TS means temporal or spatial scale. So temporal means any change over time. So cost and benefits in the past or the future, and spatial means across space. So is it different for different countries, different areas of the world? So any appreciation of that is going to be TS. CS means case study. So obviously any facts from actual real life examples. And then SYN means linking to other areas of geography. So synopticity. Just can we link to any other areas of geography, not specifically in this title, that are still relevant. Okay, let's go for it. Globalization is complex to define, but refers to the way in which the world is becoming increasingly interconnected. So they've really understood that. That's great. Concepts and processes. This has many dimensions, and connections can be in terms of capital, labour, knowledge, information, and technology. So that's some great theory on the dimensions of globalization there. So it's concepts and processes. Firstly, it could be argued that, to a great extent, globalization has created benefits to the world, but that this varies spatially. Right, this is creative benefits, so that's evaluation. It varies spatially, so that's temporal and spatial scale, and it's evaluating. The rapid development of NEEs in the later 20th century has improved the living standards and quality of life of millions across the world, and more recently, the MINT countries are growing quickly. So that's Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey, so it's a bit of case study there, and that they're arguing as well, so it's a bit of evaluation. This in turn means governments have more money in their budgets to spend on improving the country. They can improve schooling, hospitals and transport links. So it's just really good understanding of the geography, so CP there. The spread and growth of TNCs has also brought many benefits. For example, Coca-Cola spreading around the world has created jobs in nearly 200 countries, a bit of case study there, and has invested money into areas to improve local facilities such as schools and infrastructure. One instance of this is in India, where they've invested over $2 billion since operating in the country, so it's another great case study. They've also made huge profits. Revenue is $46 billion, more case study, which means massive benefits for shareholders and the US government through corporation tax. To really understand why having $46 billion revenue is a good thing, because they've explained it there, corporation tax being one of them, so that's CP again. Further arguments to disagree with the statement are that countries involved in trade blocs, e.g. the EU or ASEAN, have benefited from reduced trade barriers and cheaper prices for consumers as a result of competition. So it's more key concepts processes. Aside from economic advantage, there have been a general increase in awareness and appreciation of different cultures and a much greater awareness of worldwide news events, so people are more educated around the world as a whole. This range of arguments therefore disagrees with the above statement. And I absolutely love that bit there, because they're really linking right back to the question. The statement is globalisation has created more cost than benefits. I'm just saying all the arguments I've laid out disagree with that, so that's good evaluation there. Right, so we've done our benefits paragraph, laid out the benefits, explained them, and let's go on to the costs. On the other hand, there are many arguments to agree with the statement. A bit of evaluation there. Firstly, greater interconnectedness has left the world more vulnerable to financial shocks. An example of this was the US housing market crash in 2008, bit of case study, which trickled through the global economy, causing a recession which many countries are still recovering from. So, I mean, that's just great knowledge of the concepts and the processes again, and they kind of laying out a negative argument, so it's good evaluation. In terms of TNCs, there are issues with pollution in countries like China, India and Indonesia, where regulations are less strict and working conditions of millions of people around the world could be argued to be inhumane. More negative arguments. Coca-Cola was subject to an investigation in Colombia 2005 for working conditions issues. Case study. The whole process of globalisation has also required and led to increased transport and industry, which has dramatically increased greenhouse gas emissions, leading to global warming, which is having and will have major impacts around the world on things like wildfires, tropical storm intensity and frequency, and sea level rise, endangering islands like Kiribati, which could be submerged within 50 years. Right, so this is really, really clear example of synopticity. Can we get this in our essays, guys? So they've linked to hazards, they've linked to coasts, and it's all highly relevant because it's about global warming. So that's just superb synopticity. Link it to other areas of geography. Let's keep going. So another impact of note is that increased transport between countries has caused an increase in issues relating to invasive species. For example, the cane toad has rapidly spread through Queensland in Australia, a bit of case study, since its introduction, and has damaged local ecosystems. Deforestation issues have also increased as global demand has soared for products like palm oil, a bit more case study there, which require tropical conditions and therefore often large areas of rainforest to chop down to grow the palms. Indonesia has had 13 million hectares deforested due to its commodity. So brilliant case study. As a result, it can be argued that the costs outweigh the benefits. So a bit of evaluation there. Okay, so we're on to our conclusion. So what did this person think overall? In conclusion, I disagree with this statement. Conclusion. As overall, I would argue that globalisation has had more benefits than costs. Conclusion. And in the future, the increased wealth generated could be used to combat some of the issues arising from globalisation. So they've talked about the future there, how the answer is going to change in the future. So that's good temporal scale. The benefits, however, have been concentrated mainly in NEEs, NICs and HRCs, with LICs being left behind, and the costs are not insignificant by any means. So saying the costs aren't insignificant is conclusive, and they've said here, they've got an appreciation that it isn't just for everyone, these benefits, it's just for those HRCs, NICs, NEEs, and the LICs have been left behind. So that's brilliant spatial scale there, so more TS. Last thing, in the future, organisations like the UN and governments around the world will make further progress to address the cost of globalisation, and the benefits will outweigh the cost to a greater extent. So they've concluded in the future what's going to happen. So more temporal scale and conclusion. However, the impacts of climate change may threaten this. So another little link to synopticity. Okay, so conclusion, 2 beefy paragraphs, little mini intro where they define the key terms. And what the examiner will then do is go to the mark scheme criteria and give a level for each one. Was that conclusion detailed for level 4? Was it just clear for level 3? Was it just some conclusion for level 2? Was it very limited for level 1? It was definitely detailed, so that's level 4. Evaluation, did they weigh it throughout? Go back to the question. Yes, that was detailed. Concepts and processes, was that detailed? Yes. Lots of detail with links to temporal and spatial scale. Case study, were there enough facts in there to make it detailed? I think yes, so level 4. And synopticity, were there decent links to other areas of geography that were detailed? I think there was with climate change in the second paragraph there. I think if we go back to the first paragraph there could be some more links to different areas of geography in the first paragraph. But I think it's definitely level 3 or 4. So then the examiner says, what is it overall then? Obviously it's level 4, and it's a high level 4 because there's lots of level 4s going on here. So it's probably a 19 or 20 out of 20 essay there.